Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today to look over Charlie Adelson's call records for the month of August. And I want to thank my mom for helping me decode these records. And also I have a physicist and AI specialist who ran this chart through his analytics machine and kind of got me some very interesting data, and I wanted to just share that I'm not an analytics expert, but I do love to kind of do this for you guys. I took a class, Research Methods was my favorite class in school, so just hope that this sheds some light on some interesting things that I found through the Leon County Jail records, and shout out to Leon County Jail for getting me these records. I know that you guys are super busy, and also Daniel Rashbaum knows that they are busy too because he's having a hard time getting those 57,000 documents over to his client. And I want to share with you guys later in another video about Charlie's MP3 player and some interesting motions that were just passed. But also want you guys to stick around later in this video because I interview Mentor Lawyer and I ask him a question about some conflicts of interest with the particular people who are alleged co-conspirators that Charles Adelson is calling from jail, including his mother and father. And stay tuned for that. Also wanted to share a clip of Daniel Rashbaum giving this channel a shout out about these call records. Thank you guys for your continued support. Let's just get right into it. All right, the following calls are from the month of August 2022. These are the calls that Charlie made, but the calls that were not answered, I did not enter into this data. So the category other were not as significant, and we don't really know who those people are just because I didn't find that those call durations were long enough and that they were not anyone in particular relevance to this case. So let's just go over the increases and decreases from the chart that I made for May through July of 2022 this year. So Charlie makes 128 phone calls in the month of August to his lawyer. That is 33% of the phone calls, probably to listen to all those wiretaps through the phone. And that's an increase of 13%, you guys, from the last few months. But hold on a second and let me show you something interesting that I found in Charlie's call records. And there was a phone call placed by Charlie at 10:25 p.m. August 28th in 2022 to his lawyer, and it was a duration of about 20 minutes, but not probably what Daniel Rashbaum wants to be doing is talking to his client, even if it is Charlie, an important client, on the phone at 10:30 at night, or any of Daniel Rashbaum's employees listening to these wiretaps. I mean, we're listening to them through Fancy Fiction and Mentor Lawyer. So shout out to them. Thank you guys for sharing those. But although with some motions that are passed, he will be able to travel to Tallahassee to have meetings with Charlie and 5-hour meetings. But I'll go over that in another video. But if you just look through these call records, most of these phone calls are throughout the day. You know, I didn't see any limits on Charlie's phone call times except for like 8 a.m. till 11 p.m. I think is the cutoff. But as you can see, a lot of these phone calls are made to his lawyer, sometimes varied times of day. And he's spending, I think spent about $1,841 so far. And you can also look over these if you would like to. So the next person that Charlie calls the most is his mother, Donna Adelson, another alleged co-conspirator with 111 phone calls. That's 27% of the chart with a 12% increase from last time. Also, Charlie's calling Janice Manning, his friend. I guess we're assuming she's his friend or a therapist at 9% with 30 phone calls. That's a negative 16% from last time. Probably because Charlie needs to talk to his lawyer more. Also, guys, there was 105 phone calls to people listed as other. That's 25%, and that stayed about the same. Then we have 14 calls to Harvey Adelson at about 5%. That's negative 5% from last time, probably because Charlie needs to catch up on these wiretaps through his lawyer's phone. Also, he has 11 phone calls to Bree, the mother of his child, at 1%, and that's a negative 4% from last time. So probably not a lot of time to catch up with his child or the mother of his child, because he's got to listen to all of these wiretaps. And also keep in mind, the total of phone numbers, including the above, are 28 different numbers in August of 2022. That's 28 calls that were connected from his line to another phone line. And also just keep in mind that these are just the calls from August. He made 399 phone calls in 1 month. So that's not even counting probably twice as many calls that were never answered. Thanks again to this information from our physicist and AI scientist. He made me this chart that shows that the overwhelming calls of the one number that Charlie called the most was to Donna. And I'm assuming that the next most numbers that he calls are probably to his lawyers. And these are all this is a call frequency chart that this AI scientist has made me, which definitely confirms that overall Charlie's talking to Donna the most. Thank you for that information. And also, I just want to give a shout out to my mother, who printed these pages out and collated them, found patterns. My mother has her master's in library science, so she definitely knows what she's doing. And also, big shout out to everyone on this channel for noticing patterns, and your comments and questions really, really help this case move along. And I also want you guys to stay tuned on this video for a shout out from Daniel Rashbaum, who notices that we are noticing how many hours he is spending on the phone with his client and doing this tedious work of listening to these call records. And thanks to Fancy and Mentor Lawyer for sharing those records with us so we can kind of be in the loop. All right, you guys, thank you for everybody's continued support. Stay tuned for this question from Mentor Lawyer, and also I will share the clip of Daniel Rashbaum.
I also have one more question about Daniel Rashbaum and his clients, the Adelson'S, Harvey and Donna and Charlie Adelson. Do you think right now he might be a little bit concerned about any of their communications in the jail, Tallahassee jail?
Right. I'm assuming, I'm not sure. I would assume that right now Daniel Rashbaum is concentrating on being the attorney for Charles Adelson. I do not know for sure whether he represents anybody else, but I'm assuming that he certainly has told his client, Charles, not to discuss the case with anybody else, only to discuss it with his lawyers. So I don't think that there's any concern on his part, because I'm assuming that Charles can follow directions and will understand that he's not supposed to be helping the state and the state's case by putting more evidence in phone calls. So I'm sure that Mr. Rashbaum advised his client against saying anything at all about the case when talking to family members, friends, girlfriends, whoever he talks to.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much, Mentor Lawyer, for clearing up some of those questions. And we'll have more for you soon.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much.
Thanks
All
a lot.
right. Let's get some tennis now.
And hopefully I can win.
All right.
Documents. It took the jail 1.5 months for us to get Mr. Adelson the 3,500 pages of trial transcript from the first trial. And the reason being is we can't just FedEx the trial transcript that's given to them. We need to FedEx it to them, and then they need to make photocopies of it. So imagine all the other 56,000, 57,000 and change that we haven't been able to get him yet. The jail just doesn't have the capacity to make photocopies of such items. And we have no other way to go through such items with Mr. Adelson. Judge, we are working hard. We are doing everything we can. We're having, as has been reported on the media, hours and hours and hours of phone calls with him every day. But there's only so much we can do under these circumstances to effectively prepare our client for trial.